In the austere hallways of a 15th-century Italian convent, a story was unfolding that would shake the foundations of the church and society. Sister Virginia Maria de Leyva, a young noblewoman forced to take the habit, was on the verge of unleashing a scandal that would last for centuries. Forbidden passion, intrigues, and horrendous crimes intertwined in the life of this enigmatic figure known as the Nun of Monza. What dark secrets were hidden behind the convent walls? How did a woman destined for sainthood end up entangled in a web of lust and murder? Today, we will tell you about the carnal scandals of the Nun of Monza. If this is your first time on the channel, subscribe now so you don't miss any content about the darkest chapters of our history. Mariana de Leyva y Marino, better known as Sister Virginia Maria, was born on December 4, 1575, in the imposing Palazzo Marino in Milan, a building that currently serves as the city's town hall. Her birth took place within one of the most prominent families of Milanese nobility, which would profoundly mark her destiny and the course of events that would make her go down in history. Barely a year after her birth, in 1576, Virginia Maria's mother, also named Virginia, died suddenly. This early loss not only deprived the child of a maternal figure but also triggered a series of legal events that would have a profound impact on her future life. Her mother's death led to a complex and prolonged inheritance dispute within the family. On her deathbed, Virginia had expressed her wish to divide her considerable assets between her newborn daughter, Virginia Maria, and her eldest son, Marco Pio, from a previous marriage. This seemingly fair decision sparked the fury of Marco Pio's sisters, who found themselves excluded from the inheritance. The inheritance trial dragged on for years, plunging the family into a whirlwind of accusations, legal arguments, and political maneuvers. Marco Pio's sisters contested the will, arguing that Virginia was not in full possession of her mental faculties when she wrote it. They also claimed that Virginia Maria, being a newborn, had no right to inherit such a significant portion of the family's wealth. Finally, after years of litigation, the court ruled against Virginia Maria. The judicial decision deprived the young girl of the inheritance her mother had intended for her, drastically altering her position within the family and her future prospects. During these turbulent years, Virginia Maria lived under the guardianship of her father, Martino de Leyva. Despite losing her maternal inheritance, she remained a member of a noble family and received an education befitting her status. She learned to read and write, studied literature and music, and was instructed in the customs and protocols of Milanese nobility in the 15th century. However, her relationship with her father was complex and often tense. Martino de Leyva, though a nobleman, was in a precarious financial situation after the costly inheritance trial. As was common at the time, he saw his daughter primarily as an asset that could be used to forge political alliances or improve the family's social position through a favorable marriage. As Virginia Maria approached adolescence, her father considered arranging her marriage. However, due to the lack of resources for a substantial dowry after the legal battle, he opted for another common alternative for noble daughters: religious life. Entering a convent was a frequent practice in 15th century Italy, especially for noble families who could not afford dowries. Convents offered a respectable and comfortable life for these women, relieving their families of economic burdens. At 13 years and 3 months old, Virginia Maria was forced by her father to enter as a novice at the monastery of Santa Margherita in Monza. This decision, which did not consider the young girl's wishes or vocation, reflected the social norms of the time, where women had little control over their own destinies. On March 15, 1589, Virginia Maria experienced a decisive change in her life when her father took her to the convent of Santa Margherita, marking her definitive farewell to the secular world. Martino de Leyva, in a gesture that seemed more like compensation than an act of generosity, promised Virginia Maria an inheritance of 6,000 lire, although this money never reached her hands, just like her mother's inheritance. Virginia Maria's entry into the monastery meant not only the end of her previous life but also the beginning of a new stage filled with challenges, internal conflicts, and eventually, scandals that would resonate beyond the walls of Santa Margherita in Monza. Nevertheless, on August 26, 1591, almost 2 years after her entry, Virginia Maria was officially consecrated as Sister Virginia Maria, solemnly accepting the vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience that would define the rest of her life. Despite her initial reluctance, she proved to be a committed and diligent nun. Her privileged education and sharp intelligence did not go unnoticed within the convent. She was soon entrusted with significant responsibilities, including teaching in the monastery's girls' school. Her reputation as a respectful and dedicated nun quickly spread both inside and outside the walls of Santa Margherita. If this story has impacted you and you want to know more, subscribe and activate the notification bell. You won't want to miss what comes next. Outside the religious sphere, Sister Virginia Maria stood out as a prominent figure in the Monza community. Her intelligence, charisma, and noble lineage made her an influential person whom locals frequently turned to for advice and assistance in various matters. A letter sent by the writer Bartolomeo Succhi in May 1594 reflected not only the admiration the nun had gained but also the high expectations society had of her as an example of virtue and devotion. However, beneath the surface of this apparent life of devotion and virtue, the seeds of a scandal were growing, one that would deeply shake the monastic community and the entire society of Monza. The tension between Sister Virginia Maria's repressed desires and the strict rules of monastic life was reaching a critical point. It was in 1597 when she met Count Giovanni Paolo Osio, a young and audacious aristocrat known for his defiant character and a history of controversial behavior, including accusations of murder. Their initial meeting was casual but impactful. From his house adjacent to the monastery, Osio could observe the garden where the nuns walked, and it was there that he became captivated by the beauty and distinction of Sister Virginia Maria. Deprived for so long of male company, Osio's attention was both unsettling and exciting for her. What began as discreet exchanges of glances and gestures soon evolved into the exchange of secret notes, facilitated by the complicity of other nuns in the convent and by the priest Paolo Arrigoni, who acted as an intermediary for their clandestine encounters. A local blacksmith forged keys that Osio used to secretly enter the convent, an act that symbolized Sister Virginia Maria's transgression of the boundaries imposed by her monastic vows and the social conventions of the time. These encounters, filled with repressed passion and forbidden desires, marked the beginning of an intense and dangerous relationship for both. By 1602, the inevitable happened. Sister Virginia Maria became pregnant. This development put not only her position in the convent at risk but also her life. The pregnancy of a nun was considered a grave sin and a scandal of immense proportions. With the help of her accomplices, Sister Virginia Maria managed to conceal her condition and secretly give birth. In 1606, when one of the nuns, Caterina d'Amida, threatened to expose the affair, Osio took drastic action. With the apparent complicity of Sister Virginia Maria and other nuns, Caterina was murdered to silence her. An investigation revealed the scandal. In 1607, Osio was arrested but escaped, only to be later killed by a friend. Sister Virginia Maria was put on trial, tortured, and convicted. She spent the rest of her life in the prison of Santa Valeria until her death in 1650. Her story has endured, fascinating readers and audiences to this day. If you've made it this far and learned something new from our stories, subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss our upcoming videos. Together, we can discover and remember the truths that history often tries to hide.